In 2187, humanity had surpassed its own natural limitations. Genetic engineering and the mysterious Omega event, a cosmic energy explosion that enveloped Earth 2 centuries ago, transformed every human being, granting them extraordinary gifts. Some could manipulate the elements, others distorted space-time, and the rarest possessed superhuman mental abilities. The world became a place where greatness was the norm. From birth, every individual underwent tests to determine their special aptitude, and those with the rarest talents were immediately recruited by corporations, governments, or elite academies. But there was one exception. Isaac Vance was born without any power. In a society where strength and gifts determined one's fate, he was considered a mistake, a statistical flaw in evolution. Since childhood, he faced disdain and humiliation, always reminded that he didn't belong to this world of prodigies. His schoolmates treated him like an outcast, and his teachers didn't even try to encourage him, knowing that his lack of power condemned him to a life of insignificance. However, Isaac possessed something few valued, a sharp mind and an incredibly keen sixth sense. He could perceive patterns invisible to others, anticipate movements, and unravel mysteries that even the most powerful could not understand. His deductive ability bordered on the supernatural. He saw details no one else noticed, understood hidden intentions, and predicted consequences before any action was taken. But what good was brilliance when the world only valued those who could destroy mountains with a wave of their hands? Still, no one took his abilities seriously. He was just a zero. Until the day the most impossible crime of the century happened. The Zenith Tower, the world's most secure and technologically advanced building, was the site of an inexplicable murder. The structure, located in the heart of Neon Prime, was considered impenetrable. Equipped with advanced biometric sensors, autonomous surveillance drones, and superhuman guards, no living being could enter or leave without being detected. And yet, someone managed to commit a murder without leaving a trace. The victim, Darius Calix, was one of the world's greatest scientists and was inside a sealed laboratory, protected by impenetrable layers of security. No camera captured the killer. No system was deactivated. No trace of entry or exit. For the gifted, this was a riddle with no solution. The crime quickly became the most discussed event on the planet, shaking the public's trust in the security of Zenith Tower. How could anyone violate the most protected place in the world? For Isaac, it was a challenge. The Special Justice Division, led by the ruthless Commissioner Orion Hale, an elite telekinetic, was reluctant to entrust the investigation to a zero. Hale believed that only someone with superior powers could understand the mind of such a skilled killer. However, as the days passed without progress, the pressure to solve the case increased. World leaders demanded answers, and the media bombarded the public with conspiracy theories. It was then that someone suggested an unexpected name, Isaac Vance. Despite his reputation as a zero, some agents from the division knew about his exceptional perception and deduction skills. Reluctantly, Hale gave Isaac a chance, not because he believed in his abilities but because they were out of options. Isaac arrived at the crime scene and immediately noticed something the gifted had ignored: the small things. The arrangement of the furniture, the distribution of dust particles on the floor, the way certain objects were displaced by just a few millimeters, details imperceptible to anyone else. He realized the killer had not only violated Zenith Tower, but also wanted the crime to be noticed. And then he found the clue that would change everything. Darius Calix was not just any scientist. He was part of a secret group studying genetic anomalies, including rare cases of people without powers. People like Isaac. Isaac Vance was facing one of the greatest challenges of his life. When he was called to investigate the crime at Zenith Tower, he knew his reputation was at stake. Even though he was a zero, as everyone called him, he couldn't allow the world to continue underestimating him. His sharp mind had a value that no supernatural power could match. Isaac Vance was facing one of the greatest challenges of his life. When he was called to investigate the crime at Zenith Tower, he knew his reputation was at stake. Even though he was a zero, as everyone called him, he couldn't allow the world to continue underestimating him. His sharp mind had a value that no supernatural power could match. As he entered Zenith Tower, the magnitude of the situation hit him hard. The place, with its glass and metal corridors, seemed like an impenetrable fortress. Security systems, surveillance drones, and layers of protection intertwined, making any attempt at invasion impossible. But for Isaac, it was just a setting, and, more importantly, a clue. As he was led by the security team, he could feel the tension in the air. With every step, more and more pieces fell into place. Isaac didn't need supernatural powers to notice what others couldn't see. He knew that the murder of Darius Calix was not a simple crime, but part of something bigger. Something behind the facade of security and secrecy of Zenith Tower. The investigation began with the analysis of the laboratory where the crime occurred. The scientists had been unable to find any evidence. The security cameras had not recorded anything. Not even the most sophisticated security systems seemed to have noticed anything out of the ordinary. To all intents and purposes, the crime was perfect, or almost. While others searched for obvious flaws, Isaac looked at the small things. He crouched down and examined the details on the laboratory floor. The dust, the marks left by moving objects. There was something there. Something subtle but undeniable. After a careful analysis, Isaac found an unexpected clue. A small crack in the corner of the wall. It didn't seem like much, but that was the kind of detail no other investigator had noticed. A simple gesture of displacing an object, perhaps an oversight, but it carried a clear message. Someone wanted this to be found, thought Isaac. Throughout the investigation, Isaac was challenged on multiple fronts. The Special Justice Division, led by Commissioner Orion Hale, an elite telekinetic, remained skeptical of Isaac's abilities. Commissioner Hale was known for his rigid view on cases, believing that only those with superhuman abilities could solve problems of such magnitude. Hale looked at Isaac with distrust. To him, a zero could never possess the necessary skills to solve something that even the most powerful beings couldn't. When the commissioner first confronted him, his presence seemed to suffocate any other opinion, as if, in some way, he were proving that Isaac was just a shadow among giants. Isaac, however, wasn't deterred. He knew that to overcome the obstacles in front of him, he had to trust his ability to observe what no one else could see. He understood that his greatest strength wasn't his weaknesses, but the fact that he didn't need to follow the same paths as the talenteds. He could think outside the box. Isaac also realized that the Zenith Tower wasn't just a high-security location but a symbol of the power elite. That tower was the center of power for the entire world, where the best and most powerful individuals were entrenched. To uncover the mystery, he would have to contend with the forces behind the tower, not just the assassins. The pressure from Hale and his superiors mounted. But Isaac continued to focus on the small clues others had ignored. He knew the mystery was only just beginning. With each new piece of evidence, Isaac began to notice a pattern, something that was forming in his mind with increasing clarity. The death of Darius Calix wasn't a simple murder but part of a much larger conspiracy. It was something related to the rare cases of people like him, the zeros, those without powers. Calix, as Isaac discovered, was part of a secret project studying genetic anomalies. And within this project, the reasons why some people were born without talents like Isaac were being analyzed. The murder of Calix, therefore, had a purpose: to silence someone who knew too much about the origin of these zeros. But who would have such an interest in eliminating Calix? Was it an elite corporation? Or perhaps a faction within the government that wanted to maintain absolute control over the talented population? Isaac knew that if he could understand what Calix was about to reveal, he could unlock the key to unraveling the entire plot. As the investigation progressed, Isaac realized that, somehow, he was at the center of something much larger than he had imagined. His own identity, the reason he was born without talents, seemed to be connected to the mystery of the murder. What if everything you knew about the world was wrong? Isaac's idea about the zeros began to change, and a dark truth was getting closer and closer. And with that, the truth started to reveal itself, slowly but with chilling clarity. As Isaac investigated the details of Darius Calix's murder, he noticed something strange, a sense of being watched. No matter where he went, no matter how he moved, there was always an invisible presence lurking. The city of Neon Prime, with its gleaming skyscrapers and streets lit by neon spotlights, never seemed to rest. It was as if the city itself was aware that something big was about to happen, something that could change the fate of all its inhabitants. Isaac knew he wasn't dealing with just a simple conspiracy. He was facing something much larger, something that had spanned generations. The elites who controlled the talenteds and the zeros weren't just powerful groups, but ancient forces that had been manipulating the masses for decades, perhaps even centuries. Genetic manipulation, control of talents, social division, all were part of a larger plan to maintain the balance of power. And Darius Calix, the murdered scientist, had discovered something that could topple the whole system. He had uncovered the most dangerous secret of all. Over time, Isaac realized that the real danger wasn't the security forces chasing him, nor the government agents trying to silence him. The danger was in who he suspected to be behind the conspiracy. Calix, with his groundbreaking research, had touched on something the elites feared more than anything else: the truth about the Zeros. He was about to reveal that the Zeros weren't a genetic flaw as everyone thought. They were an essential part of a genetic control plan that had been set in motion long ago, a key part of human history that no one wanted discovered. Isaac was about to be thrust into a confrontation not only with powerful corporations but with invisible forces operating in the shadows, manipulating the fates of millions. They would come after him at any cost because he had become the only real threat to the control they had over the world. The murder of Calix wasn't just an attempt to silence a scientist. It was a message. A message that anyone who dared question the system would be eliminated without hesitation. Isaac finally uncovered the secret that Darius Calix was about to reveal before his death. The scientist was deeply involved in a secret research project about genetic manipulation of individuals, but not in a simple way. Calix and his team were investigating what he called the origin of the Zeros, meaning the reason why some people like Isaac were born without any powers. Calix's project involved a revolutionary theory. The Zeros were not failures or anomalies of human evolution, but rather, in many cases, the result of intentional genetic manipulation. It was as if humanity had been divided, some destined to evolve with supernatural abilities, while others, like Isaac, were designed to remain powerless. But why? What were the government or large corporations seeking by creating this division? Sock was shocked to discover that the answer lay within the very structure of society itself. The Zeros were being systematically controlled and used as key pieces in a much larger game. Calix was about to expose a massive global genetic manipulation network, a network that could overthrow the caste system in which the talented viewed themselves as superior. Now Isaac had to race against time. He knew that if the truth were revealed, the impact would be catastrophic. However, he also knew that those behind the conspiracy would do everything to keep the Zeros and their discovery secret, even if it meant eliminating those who tried to expose the truth. As Isaac's investigation progressed, he began to realize that the pressure on him was increasing exponentially. Initially, the threats were subtle, distant shadows he could ignore. But as he got closer to the truth, these threats became more real, more imminent. He felt eyes on him, no matter where he went, as if the very air around him was charged with tension. Isaac had never been afraid before. His intelligence had always been his best defense. But now he was being hunted by those who had the power to destroy not only his life, but his entire world. Paranoia took over his days. Commissioner Hale, who had once hesitated to trust him, was now starting to act strangely. His behavior became more aggressive and distrustful, and Isaac soon realized that Hale was no longer just a reluctant ally. He was now part of the machination that wanted to silence him. Isaac wasn't sure when Hale had joined the enemy, but it was now clear that he represented a threat, an obstacle in his path. The hunt was fully underway. The Special Justice Division, an elite unit of agents with exceptional abilities, was mobilized to hunt Isaac down. They were the best at what they did: telekinetics, energy manipulators, stealth masters. But he had no choice but to keep going. The information Calix had left behind was the key to everything, and Isaac couldn't let these clues fall into the wrong hands. He had begun to see the pattern, to understand the truth that many had tried to hide. Calix's secret about the Zeros and genetic control was not just about power. It was about survival for all of humanity. If the elite's plan succeeded, the Zeros would be condemned to live in the shadows forever, while the talented would rule without contest. As each day passed, Isaac became more aware of how vulnerable he really was. It was not only his life at risk, but the future of all the Zeros on the planet. He began to take more extreme measures to protect himself. He deactivated his trackers, changed his identity, and used every trick of intelligence he knew to throw off his pursuers. But despite everything, he couldn't shake the growing feeling that he was being cornered, like an animal hunted in an unforgiving jungle. One night, while trying to escape an armed siege in one of the most isolated districts of Neon Prime, Isaac had an epiphany. He had made a critical mistake. Calix's clues were directly connected to a hidden project inside the Zenith Tower. But the project was not just in any part of the tower. It was at the heart of the genetic control system that maintained the social divisions between the talented and the Zeros. Isaac realized that the very structure of the Zenith Tower was a prison, not just for Calix's secrets, but for all those like him whose lives were being manipulated by invisible forces. Isaac made an audacious plan. He knew he couldn't face the Special Justice Division agents in open combat. His only chance was to use the system itself against them. By infiltrating the Zenith Tower security network, he discovered that the tower had a critical flaw. The surveillance system was not prepared for such a precise attack, not if someone with Isaac's cunning was behind it. He knew the only way to divert the division's attention would be to do the impossible: infiltrate Zenith Tower from within. However, he knew that this decision would come at a high price. Zenith Tower was equipped with the highest level of security, and any attempt at invasion would trigger alarms throughout the facility. But Isaac had no choice. He needed that information and time was running out. If he were caught, it wouldn't just be his death. He knew he would lose everything he had worked for so far. More importantly, he knew that the secrets about the Zeros and genetic manipulation would be buried forever, and no one would ever have the chance to fight for a fairer future. Isaac had reached a point where he could no longer trust anyone. He no longer knew who was on his side and who was with the powerful forces trying to silence the truth. Commissioner Hale, realizing that the investigation was approaching something bigger than he had imagined, made a difficult choice: try to stop Isaac before he went any further. Hale knew that the truth Isaac was about to reveal would shake the foundations of global power. In a race against time, Isaac infiltrated the most secret facilities of Zenith Tower, where the genetic manipulation project was being conducted. He knew that this was the key to understanding everything. He had to reach Calyx's final file, where the complete information was stored. The confrontation between Isaac and the security forces was inevitable. Isaac used his sharp mind to anticipate movements, avoid traps, and deceive the guards, but the tension was palpable. He was in a territory where death could be a certainty at any moment, and the enemies were more powerful than any he had ever faced. At the heart of the secret laboratory, Isaac found the final file, but not before encountering a familiar face: Commissioner Hale, who, realizing he was about to lose the battle, revealed his true intention. Hale was not just trying to protect the system, he was part of it. He had also been manipulated, part of an experiment on controlling Zeros, but now he was in charge of the process. The confrontation between the two became a battle of intellects and abilities. Isaac used his deductive skills to deceive Hale and finally access the file, exposing the truth to the world. Genetic manipulation, social divisions, and the control of the Zeros would now be revealed. But the price of this? A global revolution where the dominant powers would fight to maintain their hold on power. With the truth finally exposed, the world would never be the same. Isaac Vance had become the unlikely hero of the greatest revolution in human history. The discovery that the Zeros had been manipulated and segregated to ensure the control of the elites shook the foundations of global power. Society was facing a new era, one in which the divisions between the talented and those without powers, known as the Zeros, began to unravel. Isaac was no longer just a man without gifts, but a symbol of resistance. He had been the catalyst for a global change, challenging a system that had ruled for centuries. The secret of genetic manipulation was exposed, and with it, the truth about the origin of the Zeros was revealed. They were not evolutionary failures, but an intentional part of a plan that divided humanity between the strong and the weak, the privileged and the forgotten. And the revelation of this changed everything. The world was now faced with a choice: continue to live under the domination of the corporations and governments that had orchestrated this system, or fight for a new order. The fight for equality had begun, and Isaac Vance had become the face of this battle. He knew it wouldn't be easy. The powers controlling the talented wouldn't fall without a fight. But the truth was on Isaac's side, and with it, the people of Neon Prime and the rest of the planet would begin to unite against the established powers. Isaac also knew that the future of humanity wouldn't be determined just by the talented, but by the collective strength of all, those with powers and those without. True change wouldn't come from supernatural gifts, but from the courage to fight for a fairer and more equal world. He felt the responsibility to lead this fight, to unite the Zeros and the talented in a movement that would alter the fate of all. He looked over the city of Neon Prime from above, the lights gleaming in the distance. There, at the heart of that concrete and neon metropolis, the revolution began. But even with the victory of exposing the truth, Isaac knew that the work had only just begun. The war for freedom would be long, and he could not rest while there was a single person oppressed. The real power isn't in the gifts. It's in our ability to change fate. And as the revolution gained momentum, Isaac looked to the future with determination. He knew that, no matter how much he had achieved, his journey was far from over. But one thing was certain: the world would never be the same. And if you also believe that true strength comes from within, Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Change begins with each one of us, and together we can continue exploring the stories that shape a new world. See you in the next episode.